We ready to roll?
Yeah, let me go ahead and hit record and we should be good.
Evening or
Yeah. Are you going to read the introduction?
Sure. Welcome to the Audit Committee meeting of October 21st, 2024. It is currently 1:03 p.m. Any members of the public who would like to make a comment during the public comment period, you will be given 3 minutes to do so. At that time, you can raise your virtual hand, or anybody in the room, currently we have none, can raise your hand and you'll be acknowledged at that time.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to call the October 21st, 2024 Audit Committee meeting to order at 1:04 p.m. Let's get started with roll call, please. Since we're not all attending in person, we'll be taking all our votes by roll call. And go ahead.
Thank you. Chair Makachuk?
Present.
Vice Chair Mohan?
Here.
Committee Member Lopez?
Here.
Committee Member Sangha?
present.
Thank you. We have all committee members present.
And you'll note that committee member Sangha is appearing remotely.
Correct.
Perfect. With that, we'll start with public comment on matters that are not listed on the agenda. Any member of the public that wishes to speak, please raise your virtual hand.
No hands raised.
No hands raised, and there are no public members here in the meeting room. So with that, I'll close public comment and we'll move on to the consent calendar, which is to approve the minutes of the February 29th, 2024 Audit Committee meeting. With that, I'll ask for public comment. If you're a member of the public and appearing remotely, please raise your virtual hand.
No hands raised, Chair.
I'll close public comment, and I would be looking for, first of all, any discussion, or I'd be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you. Chair Makachuk?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohan?
Aye.
Dr. Lopez?
Aye.
Committee Member Sangha?
Aye.
And that motion carries.
4-0-0. Next item is our regular calendar. Item 2, Silicon Valley Clean Energy Financial Audit Kickoff. For this, I believe we have a staff report and then a presentation. Amrit.
Thank you, Chair. This will be, actually, the presentation will be made by our auditor, Kellen, who's from Presenti and Brinker. So just to give a little background, as you know, this committee doesn't meet that often. This is the second time we're meeting this year. Normally we meet twice a year, but we can meet obviously as many times as we need to. The purpose of today's meeting is to kick off the financial audit. So remember the audit our fiscal year just ended September 30th. So with this, we're kicking off the financial audit. Please feel free to ask the auditors any questions on how they will be conducting the audit. Following the completion of the audit, we expect to meet in February of next year. At that time, we will review the results of the audit and also be in a position to receive the official financial statements, which we will then take to the board to submit to the board in March of next year. That's the game plan, and we do have a closed session item after this, so remember that. Any questions before I hand it over to Kellen? All right, Kellen.
All right, thank you. And it looks like from my end, I can see our presentation, or is everybody able to see that on their end? Yes, okay. So it is not September 26th, but appreciate that you're having us here. Open communication between those who are charged with governance, which is this audit committee, and the auditor is very important. It's important so that you have an understanding of our skills, knowledge, and expertise, and our capabilities of performing the audit. And it's important for our perspective to make sure that you feel comfortable communicating to us that if there were any issues, we want to have open and two-way communication. So if there was anything of substance that you needed to communicate to us, or vice versa, if we found anything and needed to communicate it to you, that we would have open channels to do so. So appreciate you having me here today. Next slide, please. As previously mentioned, my name is Kellen Gilbert. I've been in public accounting about 17 years, mostly focused in the government auditing realm, with extensive CCA experience, and Ali Schaefer, very familiar in the CCAs as well. I think this is her third or fourth year on this specific engagement, and it's just always nice for you to know that you're having continuity on the engagement. So you're getting the same crack team that we have last year again on the audit this year. Next slide, please. So this is our proposed timeline. We can obviously tweak it a little bit. I think we were slightly off of this time frame last year, but it's always good to aim high. We anticipate that the draft financial statements will be available from Mike in early January, with us wrapping up our reviews and having, if not the completed financial statements, if they have to be approved by this committee in February, our goal is to have what we would call a final draft or a solid draft by the end of January, so that everybody involved can make sure that they've reviewed it and give it the green light. In which case we would then issue at this after this committee has approved it, or again, we can fine tune that, but that's the general gist of the timeline: end of January, early February, to have the audit completed and wrapped up. We're happy to, I think in what we've done in the past is we've met with the audit committee chair to facilitate any questions prior to the audit committee meeting. Again, this is just to help improve that two-way communication so that we can discuss openly any challenges or any issues with the audit, and the chair can communicate to us if there's any issues specifically that they'd like to hear about. Next slide, please. And this is what I believe is the most important slide. This is just a really great reminder for everybody in the room what the relative responsibilities are over the financial statements. So management is responsible for preparing the financial statements. So management is responsible for all the underlying financial transactions. They're responsible for the system of internal controls that oversees those transactions, and management is responsible for the complete and unbiased footnote disclosures that are contained within the financial statements. So all of the information within the financial statements is the sole responsibility of management. Us as the auditor, our responsibility is to express an opinion on whether or not we think those financial statements are free of material misstatements. So that's really a big separation. Really, we're performing on a test basis, double checking the numbers, the notes, but the overall accuracy of the financial statements and all the underlying accounting information within the financial statements are the responsibility of management. And we perform our audit using what's called a risk-based approach. So that requires that we obtain an understanding of your processes, accounting transactions, your industry, and then we use that risk-based approach to determine what sets of tests and procedures we're going to perform to, again, gain comfort over all the information within the financial statements. And we do that by a combination of analytical procedures, confirmations, tests of year-end balances, review of reconciliations. All of the above go into our procedures. And lastly, we evaluate the adequacy of the disclosures. So we're looking to make sure that all the required disclosures are present, and then we're also looking to make sure that that the disclosures only contain accurate, relevant information, and that there's not any unnecessary or biased information within those disclosures. Next slide, please. So the SAS 114 pre-audit communication, of which this is part of, this is again open two-way communication, but we will also follow this up with a letter finalizing our risk assessment and communicating that to you, and that will be sent directly to the audit committee. We noted here we will send that in early October, but we wanted to have this meeting first, so that will be sent shortly after this meeting. Next slide, please. So again, as I mentioned earlier, our audit is a risk-based approach audit. We're going to, and we have started to refresh our understanding of your organization's operating characteristics, practices, policies, procedures, and we want to make sure that we have clear and documented internal controls, specifically over those significant accounting cycles and business processes. Next slide, please. And this is just a rough overview of some of the significant accounting areas. Revenue recognition is always an important area for us to test. We test that in conjunction with accounts receivable. We test a sample of customer billings. We relate cash to the total cash received during the year to the total revenue, looking for any large discrepancies. We look at cash received subsequent to year end, again to substantiate that accounts receivable at year end. And then we also look at the pattern of revenue recognition throughout the year to make sure that that's being recorded consistently. Next slide, please. Some other areas of significant focus, cash. It's a very easy area to audit, but also very important to every organization. So we want to make sure that that exists and is valued correctly. So we'll use confirmations to do that. Accrued cost of electricity. We review subsequent bills from the electricity providers, cash payments. We want to tie those out and make sure that we have a good handle on the accrued cost of electricity, that is complete at year end. We do a historical review of allowance for doubtful accounts. We review management's estimate through recalculation. As I said, look to see the historical trend, making sure that that allowance is adequate and not under reserved for. And we also test other liabilities through review of contracts, subsequent disbursements testing, which is where we look at outgoing cash after year end and trace those back to the related or underlying invoice to make sure that all the amounts that should be recorded at year end are in fact recorded. So again, that's another completeness test for liabilities. And lastly, that I mentioned earlier, we read the disclosures, compare those against disclosure checklists and our understanding of the industry to make sure that all the required disclosures are there, that they are complete and that they're accurate and not containing any unnecessary information. So I think that was the last slide. I went through that pretty quickly, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you have on either the timing or the process or anything in the presentation.
Thank you. What is your expected date, audit report date?
So that's something we can definitely work to confirm. I don't want to contradict anything that was just said. Our target date was the end of January, but if it needs to be approved by this committee prior to us finalizing the audit, we would wait until your February audit committee. If it can be finalized prior to the audit committee, we can do it that way as well. But I can firm up that time frame with Karen and Emirates.
Okay. This is the kickoff, and would you just confirm that you and everyone at your firm is independent of Silicon Valley Clean Energy?
Yes, we are 100% independent in fact and appearance.
Excellent. Who do you see as the users of the financial statements?
We see the ratepayers and the public, and also your partners, the energy providers, anybody who you're doing business with. But I think our priority would be the ratepayers.
Okay, and we've got a rating, don't we?
Yes. Credit rating.
Credit rating. So are the credit rating agencies are key users of our financial statements, since they're relying on that? I just want to make sure that that's on your radar screen and we're all on the same page.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, I've asked several questions. I thought I'd start off with those. And what I'd like to do is have other members of the audit committee ask some questions. And then what I'd like to do is take public comment and then bring it back. But there's no decision required today. There's no action required. So other questions?
Sure, a couple of questions. Is there anything different that you're doing this year relative to last year?
Yeah, we will perform a number of procedures. One of the audit requirements is that we maintain an element of surprise so that we don't perform the same audit year over year. So there will be a slight difference, but we haven't quite finished our risk assessment procedures yet. So I can't speak to any major differences between last year's audit and this year's audit, especially until we get the draft numbers. But it will be similar to last year, but it will not be the same.
Okay. One other question. You call this a risk-based approach.
Yes.
How or why is that different from any other approach?
Yeah, so a risk-based approach, it isn't different. That is the required approach that professional standards says that auditors must take. So the difference is, I'm going to date myself, it's probably been 12 or 15 years now. It used to be more of a balance sheet approach where the auditors would just come in and beat up the balance sheet or statement of net position and really wouldn't focus on the statement of changes in net position as much. And they changed the standards again about 15 years ago and said, no, we want you to really be thinking about all the underlying transactions and identify where those risks are and really perform a more targeted audit approach as opposed to just, like I said, testing the statement of net position and assuming that the fallout would be correct in the more or less the P&L, the statement of changes in net position. And so that's why it's called a risk-based approach, but it does not mean that that you guys are risky or there's anything unusual here. That's just the approach that we're required to use.
That you're required to use because of the nature of this business?
No. All financial statements audits are required to be a risk-based approach. That's just the terminology that we use in the audit field.
Generally accepted auditing standards?
Yes.
Sorry, I had to get that one in. More questions?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Colin, when will your risk assessment be completed?
I would say within the next, well, it's mostly going to be finalized, but we always have to kind of leave it open until we get a draft of the numbers without seeing what new accounts might be in place. We can't 100% finalize it. It's kind of a series of steps of processes. So we're close to finalizing it based off of the procedures that we have done with Mike already and our understanding of the industry and of prior year, but it can't be completely finished until we have seen a draft of the numbers.
Okay, Chair, and are we just doing questions for now? You want us to hold comments?
Yeah, just hold comments, just ask questions.
Yeah, that's all.
Member Sangha, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if there are any specific governmental accounting standards that we're implementing as part of this this audit.
I don't believe that there will be any new standards applicable for this year
Thank you.
that would have a material impact. We're not required to disclose all new GASB pronouncements, only ones that are significant for the year.
Other questions? No? Well, now we'll open it for public comment. If you're a member of the public appearing remotely and you would like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand.
No hands raised.
I'll close public comment, bring it back for comments. Sergio, Member Lopez, you had a comment to make?
Yeah, this is really more for our staff, but I know that we weren't able to meet on the original cadence. I'll just be open to thinking about if we need to schedule something before February to still keep with the originally planned cycle, if that would be best. I would be open to that, and we should do some polling and discuss, but I leave that up to the rest of the committee and the chair. I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. Other comments? No. Member Sangha, comments?
Nope, none from my end. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just make a couple of comments, and sometimes I say these time after time. Audit committee, finance committee, boring is good. So hopefully it'll be a very boring audit. The other thing is that everyone knows that Mike Marr of Marr Accountancy does our transaction processing and actually prepares the financial statements. And I think that that's an important aspect that I give some reliance upon. Just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that. And it makes it a really true audit where they do everything and Vicente and Brinker come in and they look at it. And I think as well, Marr does several other CCAs that you also audit. So to me, it's all good. Those are my only comments. Anything else from anyone? No? Are we good?
We're good.
Are we good? Okay.
Yes. All right. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kellen.
And also, I appreciate the interest, the flexibility to stay on schedule. So with that, item number 3 is SVCE policy review update, and this is a discussion. And our general counsel, I think, is going to lead us in this. Is that correct? Over to you, Michael.
Yes, that's the plan. Thank you so much, Chair. Here today to give you a brief update about something you may have heard about in some other spaces, but wanted to talk about it here because it touches on all of the policies of the organization. We are going through a process to sort of update those policies and kind of put the information at the right level, whether it's board approved or in a new staff approved standard. And the process of the policies is going to differ depending a bit on the substance of the policy. And so generally the policies are going to be going to XCOM in November for discussion and then to the board in December. However, the finance related policies are going to be going to the F&A committee in November as opposed to XCOM, and then we'll go along with the others to the full board in December. So I wanted to flag that. And some of the policies aren't being changed. Yeah.
XCOM is executive committee?
Yes.
Sorry, I just had to make sure that we're all on the same page with the terminology. Thank you, and I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. Appreciate the flag and sorry for the shorthand. I was just going to flag at this point, we're still going through the process, but it looks like a handful of the policies we're not planning to change, including the debt limitations policy and the reserves policy this go around. But many of the policies are being updated. So wanted to let this committee know and flag that, again, the financial related policies, including our records management policies, will be coming to the F&A committee for discussion next month.
Okay. Anything else? I'll open it up for questions. Questions from the audit committee?
Is this something you would do every year?
Yes, we're gonna sort of schedule in regular updates to all the policies, and part of this process is identifying a cadence for those. A number of them will be updated every year. Others will be updated over a longer period. But yeah, we're going to continue to kind of refine and hone them as we go.
Because
Can I add just a follow-up to that? So we hadn't been reviewing these every year, Director Mohan. So this was something that was flagged at a finance committee that we needed to re-look at all of our policies. We had some policies on the books that were a bit outdated. And so this is kind of a attempt to start fresh with our policy, have less policies that are approved by the board, and have many more internal standards with controls. So, but then once the board approves these new, it'll also have a cadence of review, like our energy risk management policy has right now.
Yeah, makes sense, but because I didn't remember going through this last year.
Yeah, this is the first time.
Other questions?
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this. Could you give an example of the kind of criteria you would use in deciding whether to update a policy? Just as example.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of it is changes based on changes in law, and that the kind of things you see in a HR handbook that get updated regularly. Other ones are things we thought were a good idea several years ago, but looking at them now, doesn't make sense to do them. And so sort of clean up on some things. And then other pieces, sort of as Monica was saying, are starting to add in some controls as well as some additional operational flexibility so that we can do work efficiently without having to necessarily bring stuff back to the board for approval. Give Monica an opportunity to delegate some of the authority that she has to staff so that she can, focus on other things. Those are the types of things that we're thinking about in terms of updates largely.
Okay, great.
Member Sangha, questions at all?
Yeah, just wondering, are there any policies that are planned perhaps that would fall under the purview of this committee?
I don't think we're making significant changes. We're making changes to the accounting policy, and in there is, related to the establishment of this committee. But at this point, I don't think there's any significant changes proposed there substantively that this committee would have an opinion about.
Okay, those are the questions at this point. Any more questions? No? Well, at this point in time, I'll open it for public comment. If you're a member of the public appearing remotely and you would like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand.
Hands raised.
I will close public comment on this item. And we're going to have a closed session, but before any committee or staff remarks. No? Okay. With that, we're going to move to closed session, which is a threat to public services or facilities. And at this point in time, I'd like to open it for public comment on the closed session. If you're a member of the public or appearing remotely, please raise your virtual hand. No hands are raised, so I'll close public comment on this and we will move to closed session.
Is there a different link that we should call into?
Yes, committee member Sangha and Monica, I just forwarded you the link.
Okay.
126.
So we'll leave this one then.
Yeah, join the other one. We'll end the public one in this room as well.
Okay.
And here comes our